Recently, I asked you guys, what are your hot takes on Pokemon Legends EA? And you guys responded with, Mega Starmie is actually a good design when you learn its lore and references. So I have seen Mega Starmie, not in-game yet, but I'm on the internet enough to unfortunately be spoiled on the design, although how much of a design it is questionable. Obviously, I'll flash Mega Starmie on screen, so spoilers if you count that as so. But Mega Starmie is very, very simplistic, as its bottom two legs get longer. That's the design. The lore behind this, however, from what I can find without spoiling myself in-game by searching on the internet, is that Mega Starmie is just becoming more human-like and more intelligent and trying to mimic people. Now personally, I don't think a short sentence in a Pokédex is enough to justify a really simplistic design, but I think, in a way, a simplistic design on its own isn't really a bad thing. I think some of the best Mega designs, for example like Mega Slowbro, turn the Pokemon and transform it in such a simple way, and I think that's a great way to create a Mega. I think in some cases what Mega Pokemon do is simply just try and be edgy and look more aggressive and, put more spikes on the Pokemon. And I don't think that works, and that's not really being creative or transforming that Pokemon. I feel like Mega Pokemon's design should look like what that Pokemon was always supposed to look like, rather than just make the Pokemon more aggressive. So in theory, I think, just touching up and editing a small piece of Starmie to make its Mega design, in theory is okay, but I do realise this really ultra simplistic design obviously doesn't sit right with a lot of people. Personally though, I don't really care, and for the main reason that there are over 60 Mega Pokemon at this point. I think it's completely fine to have some, more goofy designs, and I think the design is justified when you realise Game Freak pretty much know what they're doing with Mega Starmie. They're trying to have fun, and I don't know, it's just not really a big deal to me. I think it's funny and that's cool. The game is great, but feels a little more scarce in comparison to Legends Arceus. This one's really tough, and I've been trying to compare and contrast the two games, and I have been going back to Legends Arceus to compare it. And it's a really difficult one because Legends Arceus, I guess, is more open space, more, square footage in terms of size. It's bigger, there's more different areas, the biomes differ more. But I think for me, why I might prefer Legends EA, and I'm not really sure yet, I think I just have to sit for it for a bit longer. But the city just seems more detailed. I understand it's not the most detailed, and there are parts of it where I'm like, okay, this part of the city looks completely the same as another part, and so I think that is a weakness. However, it doesn't really take much to top on Legends Arceus in terms of content per area. Once you get access to Hisuian Braviary in Legends Arceus, and you can fly up really high and see pretty much the whole map at once in some cases, like the Obsidian Fieldlands, it starts to really become clear how empty the space is, not in terms of how many trees there are or bushes, but simply the fact that that's the whole map, just trees, bushes and Pokemon. There's really not a lot that separates each area from another. With Legends EA, however, I've not even beat the game, but I do have my favourite areas within the game, and I think that should say something in terms of how more dense it is, in terms of different design and different locations really feeling a bit ownable. But I do agree, if you're going to make a game in a city, it could be a lot better, and there are moments where I'm like, Game Freak could have tried a lot harder with this. The tutorial is too long, and I completely agree. I don't think this is a hot take. I think it does a decent job as not really feeling like a tutorial, in the sense that it's not a lot of menu screens, and there is a sense that I do need to kind of know what I'm doing in this game, especially since the battle system has been completely reworked. But I think the idea of the tutorial being really restrictive is really clear when you try and run away from the path you're supposed to be on, even just a tiny bit. There are moments where your character that's leading you, your rival, will really just not let you go anywhere, like even slightly diverse from the track that you're supposed to be on, even if doing so wouldn't really change the game at all. And the weird thing is, this lasts a long time. I think for me, and I like to play games a little slower and take my time, I think there were at least 2 hours where I just really couldn't do what I wanted to do, and so that was really weird. However, one thing I did notice within the tutorial is that you can skip cutscenes, so people have been asking for that for ages, so that's a plus I guess, but I think saying the tutorial is too long, I completely agree. If the tutorial, however, did let you just go to other places, I think that would have been completely fine, but of course, our hand is being held the entire time. Lastly, I'm just going to touch on this comment that says the graphics are not just fine but fantastic, and the second point being the game does not need voice acting. So I agree with half of this. I do not think the graphics are just fine but fantastic. Personally, I can see a lot of improvement on the graphics, and in my last video when I tried to explain why the graphics aren't as good, I think people misconstrued that and thought I was justifying or supporting Game Freak's and Pokemon's plan and structure as a business and not prioritizing quality over quantity. No, I was just stating that's how it is. I disagree that they can't be doing better. They can definitely be doing better. That being said, there are some areas in the game where I'm like, I don't really get what all the fuss is about. This isn't, the best looking game of all time, but some areas like the hotel just look fine. Like, there's nothing really to complain about in those areas. Yes, if you focus on the windows the entire time, you're going to frustrate yourself, but that's not how I play the game. I don't just look at one asset entirely for the whole playthrough. But at the same time, I completely understand that people are tired of these standards for the graphics, and yes, they can be a lot better. What I do agree with though is the game does not need voice acting. I think there's so many different ways around voice acting, and let me just be super clear. When I say voice acting, I mean like fully fledged out sentences and cutscenes filled with dialogue. I think it's okay to have like a bit of noise and like gibberish, like in Animal Crossing, not that gibberish, but you know what I mean, where characters are kind of speaking but not. I think that's fine, and I think there's a lot of ways around not having to implement dialogue heavy voice acting within video games. And I mention this because I agree, I don't think creating fully fledged voice acting and dialogue heavy voice acting is the solution here. I think many games, like countless games, do dialogue well without voice acting. You don't need it. I think the problem with Pokemon is that a lot of the dialogue is just completely non-story related, or sometimes it tries to focus on a character you'll never see again, or sometimes it does that thing where it gives you the illusion of choice, where it's trying to make you pick between two decisions, but ultimately they do the exact same thing. And my worry with voice acting, maybe this is my hot take for the video, but in a lot of games that I play with voice acting, I really don't think it adds to the experience, at least not for me. Like, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with reading at the end of the day. There's nothing wrong with reading. And sometimes it can even go as far where voice acting, for me at least, can seem really cringy, and if it's not done well, I actually really believe that it can make the experience worse. And it's just, I would rather not risk voice acting, and I think voice acting is on the list of stuff I want from new Pokemon games, when you've got graphics and new regions, and I want it to feel like a coherent and massive environment. Voice acting is at the end of that list. I don't think voice acting makes games good. But of course, maybe you do, and if you do, or you disagree or agree with any of these hot takes, let me know in the comments down below. I'll be sure to read them all, and you may be featured in a future video. Thanks for watching.